Job loss may be the cause of this housing market crash. The housing market crash is now only area specific, as not every U.S. market is seeing housing price declines as we had expected. The ultimate price bottom from the peak of last April and May, I believe, will be determined based on the job market stability and growth, or the opposite, massive job loss, should this economy continue its current downhill trend. Job loss can create less demand for housing in certain markets, which causes inventory to increase as demand to live in these areas decline. This increases the number of homes available to purchase, and then that creates more competition for the sellers and better conditions for a more buyer's market, including better terms and lower home prices. For the most part, the jobs market around most of the U.S. is still strong. A lot of companies are still hiring, and that's creating a lot of demand in some major cities. And for some, it's actually too much demand with the amount of available home inventory, and that is preventing prices from dropping. Simply put, there's just still not enough single-family housing to meet the current home buyer demand, especially in these markets that I'm talking about with good, strong job growth. So as of now, despite the rising mortgage interest rates, in many parts of the United States, we're just not seeing the home prices decline as many may have hoped and expected, at least as of yet. Now, I've been predicting a housing market crash for almost a year now. And now with this said, there are pockets around the United States where we are seeing home inventories increase. And these areas are creating a lot more competition for the sellers and resulting in major price reductions. These areas, I would definitely say a housing market crash has begun. This is being created not just by the higher mortgage interest rates, but these are areas where they're experiencing job loss and there's simply just less demand for people to live in these markets. Now, this is due to underpaying jobs, layoffs, and corporate restructuring, whereas companies are starting to reduce their staff in exchange for automation and outsourcing so that they can actually increase their bottom line. In this video, I'm going to show you which metropolitan areas in the U.S. are crashing and also where we've seen little to no home price decline. And you'll see for yourself the home inventory is traveling hand in hand with the U.S. job market. So in just a few minutes, you'll be able to better understand why some people are seeing more of a housing market crash than others. Hey, welcome back and thanks for watching this video. If this is your first time watching, I'm a real estate broker in Maryland, and I have over 30 years experience in serving the residential housing market in one aspect or another. If you're enjoying this video, I would hope that you consider subscribing to our channel and don't forget to hit the alert bell so you'll know every time we upload content. So in my over 30 years experience, I've seen a lot of ups and downs in the housing market. And over time, this has been because of many different factors and indicators, and many of these are not for the same reason. And it's very common that I hear that this time is different. And I can assure you that in every downturn, they said the same thing. And from somebody that's been in the housing market for decades, I believe that we're entering what is known as the hyper supply phase of the real estate market cycle. Now, this will be devastating for some and opportunities for others, especially those home buyers that have been waiting on the sidelines, hoping to buy a home that they can afford. Now, before we go ahead and dive into that map, I want to explain to you what it means to be entering in the hyper supply phase of the real estate cycle. And then I want to discuss what actually causes housing inventory to increase, cooling demand, as ultimately the housing supply will begin to outweigh the demand. The real estate cycle consists of 4 phases and usually comes full circle every 18 to 19 years. Now, as I just stated, I believe that we are just beginning the hyper supply phase of the real estate cycle. And we are starting to see year over year 30 to 40% increase in available inventory on average across the entire country. And if you haven't seen it yet, stay tuned because I do believe it's coming soon to an area near you. Now, when we're talking about single family houses, there are really 2 types of inventory. Number 1 is existing homes, and then it would be new construction. because ultimately people need a place to live, and the combination of these two is what creates the inventory and the demand or the lack thereof. And then once we really dive deep into the hyper supply phase of the real estate cycle, which usually could take about anywhere from 12 to 18 months, even though prices may decline in this phase, we then see the largest price decline, which is then the next phase known as the recession phase. This is when we see the most drastic price reductions as the highest vacancy rates really start to increase that inventory to a level to where we not only have move-in ready, but a lot of distressed property, and that's usually resulting because of foreclosure. Now, there are reasons why we enter the hypersupply phase of the real estate cycle. And a lot of these reasons are based on economic factors, not just in the US, but really globally, as a lot of our US economy is based on what's happening throughout the world. No one's questioning the fact, are we in a real estate bubble right now, as we've watched home prices on average across the country increase 40% or more in just the last 2 years. Now, this is faster than we've ever seen before. And guys, it's even faster than what we experienced leading up to the massive housing crash of 2008. And no one is questioning whether housing is becoming less affordable or that the prices are higher than they've ever been before. And our monthly mortgage payments or our rent is actually taking up a larger portion of the amount of money that we earn than ever before. Now, every seller today, including home builders, flippers, or anyone selling a home right now that doesn't need to buy another, is hopeful that the housing market crash doesn't occur, and they're hoping that home prices would continue to increase at the same rate that we've seen in the last several of years. And for those hopeful sellers and home builders, I say, sorry, folks. That train has since derailed, and it's not headed back into the station anytime soon. To prove my point, let's take a look at this Fred chart where it shows the average median house price in the United States over a very long period of time. And as you can see, this peak in the early part of 2022, there is no other peak in history that goes quite as steep, quite as fast as what we've recently experienced. We've had record-breaking money printing and stimulus. We've had the lowest 30-year mortgage rates in history. And now, as a result, somehow, consumers have the highest amount of consumer debt, revolving debt, credit card debt, and less money in their bank accounts, despite all of the free money that has been distributed by our federal government. Now, to me, this shows that you can't just falsely stimulate the economy and prop things up for too long before we start to see the house of cards come down. And for those of us that maybe have never been through a downturn before, or for those that have forgotten what it's like to see some kind of a major economic downturn. And I get it, guys, sometimes it is hard to imagine the sky never falling. But to remind us, we have J-PAL and the Fed to jack up those interest rates the fastest that we've ever experienced in history. In fact, mortgage interest rates almost tripled in the short time period of 12 months. And along with that rate hike, banks are really crushing Americans that happen to be carrying credit card debt on a monthly basis to a level that they may never seem possible to pay off. So let's turn our focus to the only thing that may be preventing the U.S. housing market from completely collapsing, and that is our jobs market. And you'll see as we're taking a look at this chart, there is a direct correlation between areas that still have strong job growth to the still limited amount of available housing inventory. And in these areas, it's preventing the housing market from crashing like other parts of the country where we're seeing the most jobs decline and the biggest layoffs. But guys, I want to caution you, as many of the economists are saying that if the Fed continues to rise interest rates like they've promised, to where they say taming inflation is way more important than the effects that it may cause to our job market. Should we see more job loss and layoffs across a broader area affecting a larger part of the United States, then I believe we're going to see a housing market crash that makes 2008 look like a walk in the park with your brand new puppy. So let's go ahead and dive into this chart. Now, this chart is created by the National Association of Realtors, and it's called the Housing Shortage Tracker. And guys, this is at the end of the third quarter of 2022, and we have seen inventory levels come up slightly, but there is one problem with the real estate data. It always seems to be backward looking, and a lot of this is because there are literally over 1,000 multiple listing services throughout the country, and it does take time for the agents to update these systems and then for the associations or the MLS to report to the National Association of Realtors. And by the way, I've dropped a link below in our show notes just in case you'd like to see your own state. So this map covers 174 metropolitan areas in the United States. And by the way, when we're looking at the balance between available housing, we're really talking about housing permits, because the only way to increase housing in an area when there's a higher demand is to actually build more. So typically the historical average in a balanced or a very healthy real estate market is about 1 permit to every 2 new jobs. So as we look at this map, the burgundy red, the darker red, is reflecting the higher housing shortage areas. And then your brighter red, still short, but really, it's not as critical. And then also, as we get into more peach, it's kind of lightening up here, right? So, as we get into the blue, we've got sufficient supply, meaning that there is enough housing to, satisfy the demand. And then really when we get into that gray area, that's really bad, because that means that there is 0 new jobs. And these areas are being impacted, tremendously right now. And we're seeing that these areas have the biggest decline in home values. So now taking a look here in Maryland locally, 3 big areas for us, obviously Baltimore, Columbia, and Towson. And you can see here that a new single family unit permit was issued for every 17 jobs. Now, I just said that a healthy market is 1 new permit for every 2 jobs. And then some of the areas where we're starting to see the most significant amount of decline. And by the way, it is kind of good that we're looking at this map that is, really coming into 2 quarters of older data, because it's true. We're starting to see the biggest house price decline in some of the areas that accelerated the most, parts of Texas, Florida, California, Oregon. So as we can take a look here, Gainesville, Florida, you could see the cool off back in September, a new single family permit on every 3 new jobs. Right now, it's flat and going in the opposite direction. And then, like I said, as we get into areas like Jacksonville, Florida, we were balanced as of the end of September as 1 single family permit per 2 jobs. Now let's cruise over to California, and we can see Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, California, the housing shortage. So starting to, it's in that lighter red, single family permit per every 7 jobs. But as we go into, Bakersfield, California, Fresno, California, Sacramento, Reno, Nevada, we can start to see where the market has really cooled off, and this trend just continues to get worse. Okay, guys, so I just want to take 1 minute and recap the importance of this map. So what I've been saying here is that the job growth or the job market is really what's pushing the demand for housing and this housing shortage right now. Because as we've watched the mortgage interest rates almost triple in just a year, people are still buying the houses regardless. And in a lot of these markets where the jobs are strong and that these companies are still hiring, it's even causing buyers to still experience that FOMO that we've talked about in previous videos. And it's really creating this exuberance where people are still competing despite national headline news. And this is where the Fed themselves have said that the housing market is overheated and a well-needed price correction should be on its way. Now, guys, as I had just mentioned, one of the reasons why we're not seeing home prices decline in a lot of the markets is because the job market is still strong in these areas. So I believe that we are really at a turning point or a critical moment in the U.S. economy where, depending on what happens over the next quarter, is really going to chart the path as to whether we start seeing massive layoffs, corporate downsizing, and really throwing the people that have, paid the most amount in the last 2 years for a home because of their new job, or those that took advantage of, what was very cheap money to buy things, and now they haven't paid them off, and we're seeing record-breaking interest rates, sometimes credit card rates now as high as 30% per year. So guys, no matter where you are in the United States, if you're looking to buy a home right now, I can't tell you enough how cautious you should be. A housing market decline takes years to unfold. We are now about 7, 8, 9 months into this balancing, this leveling off, and this decline that is starting in a lot of areas of the country. From here, things could accelerate very quickly. So what may appear to be a little bump in demand, as we've seen mortgage interest rates cool off about a point in the last week or so, this downward trend could quickly turn on us, literally at a moment's notice. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, you can hit that thumbs up. It will let me know that you did. And always, guys, if you know someone who should be hearing this information right now, please take the time, hit the share button. Let's get this information out to as many people as we can. It's always our job here at Sachs Realty to make sure that you're up to date and well informed of what's going on in the housing market. And like I said before, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please take the opportunity, do so now. Hit the alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.